good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever on the planet this wonderful webinar finds you. And yeah, we're here to see the proven path to better B2B leads. That is a whole lot of adventure for us, and we have a great panel to talk about that. I'm Robert Rose, by the way. I'm the Chief Strategy Advisor for the Content Marketing Institute, in addition to doing other things like writing books. And I'm going to be learning here just as much as you are, and I'm super excited to really be here. I spend my time really working with brands all over the world on helping them get to better B2B leads. And so, yeah, like I said, I'm going to be learning here just like you are. So before we dive in really quickly here, what I wanted to do was cover just a couple of housekeeping items just before we get started. So first of all, if you've got any questions, if you want to ask a presenter anything, there's a Q&A box on the right side of your screen. We're going to try and answer as much as we can during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. But if we can't get to your question today, well, we can follow up with an answer through email. And I also wanted to mention that this session is being recorded and we will share it with you later. So watch your inbox for the wonderful archive of this. All right, let's get to our amazing panel here so that we can get this thing going, right? So we have Maggie Philbin. She joins us from HubSpot, and it's really hard for me not to say HubSpot, the audio destination for business professionals, because I do that every week on my podcast. But Maggie has more than a decade of experience in MarTech, and she specializes in helping front office teams unlock more value from their data. Then we also have Michelle Yin from StackAdapt, specializing in scaling strategic partnerships like the partnership with HubSpot and Kuno Creative, and brings experience across ad tech, media, software, and entertainment. And finally, the ever effervescent Sean Canary from Kuno Creative. He's a digital marketing leader with experience across healthcare, consumer goods, and B2B, and he blends his strategic expertise with passion for education as a professor. Yes, Professor Canary is what we should be calling him. All right, so let's get this thing started, shall we? We've got some goals for our discussion today, and what I wanted to do is a little bit of a tee up here and what we're seeing in B2B, what we're seeing in industrial marketing as I've came to know it as I was growing up in marketing, which is there's really a transformation happening. And the goals that we want to cover today as we start looking through all these different goals in terms of the way that we'll organize the conversation is in context with what we see happening. So one of the things that I do with Content Marketing Institute, and certainly on my own with my clients, is we do a lot of research. And there's some really interesting things happening here as we look at 2025. We are seeing evolving customer expectations, right? So 80% these days of B2B buyers are expecting a B2C-like purchasing or buying experience. We are competing with the B2C platforms that are out there and those kinds of digital experiences. We are also seeing 70% now being open to self-service. How much of the self-service can we do in our considered buying journey, because B2B tends to be longer, higher touch, et cetera. We're also seeing the macroeconomic sort of trend of the experience or the servitization of manufacturing of B2B, where so many B2B providers these days are being expected to provide better experiences as part of what they do for a living. In other words, it's more about not just about how do we create a transaction with a customer full stop, but how do we create the experiences that keep them coming back, to keep them idea of subscribing, to keep them upselling and cross-selling into other solutions that we provide, and expanding the things that we are doing as part of understanding that customer journey even better. We're also seeing, of course, efficiency play a huge role in terms of smart marketing and what we're doing with smart marketing. And as part of that, it's really all about first-party data, right? First-party data in this world that we live in today. It is becoming the gold standard. It is becoming the fuel by which we use to create things like personalization, targeted content, all those kinds of things. But in many ways, B2B feels like they're behind there. They feel like they're behind in their competitors. So is it something, as I often say to clients, where personalization and first-party data is kind of the sexiest thing that nobody's doing? No, it's actually happening. It's really happening, and we're going to talk about that too. And we'll also touch on this idea that we see a lot in B2B marketing today, the B2B skills gap, where we actually have to help and get help closing our digital skills gap. And we've got just the panel to help us talk through those things. So as we start building our B2B campaigns, we start getting to the value and the tools and solutions, how to use those tools. Those are going to be the topics that we're talking about today with our esteemed panel. And the way this is going to work is that we've got this is Team Panel, which is going to sort of give a bit of an introductory presentation and in many ways sort of demonstrating some of this value. And then we'll sort of go side by side of each of those and get into a Q&A where we can actually get into some wonderful questions and answers. And first up, we have Maggie with HubSpot, and she's going to tell us all about the idea of using custom events to collect behavioral data. So Maggie, over to you.
Thanks, Robert. Hi, everyone. Maggie Philbin. I am Senior Product Manager here at HubSpot. I'm focused on a team called Event Management. Our entire mission is helping you unlock more value from your first-party data. So to dive in, let's first clarify what exactly we mean by first-party data. To put it most simply, it's the information that you are collecting directly from your prospects or customers through the channels that you own. So this is going to include interactions on your website. This is going to include form submissions, email engagement, purchase history, customer feedback, all the wonderful data that's in your CRM or marketing automation platform. And unlike third-party data, which is provided by a third-party service or purchased by you or your team, first-party data is really valuable, especially in this current environment for a lot of different reasons, primarily because it's yours. So because this is data you're collecting directly from your prospects or customers, it's going to be more accurate than data that you're receiving from third-party vendors because it reflects actual interactions with you and your brand. It's collected with consent, so it's going to be compliant with privacy standards and regulatory frameworks, which we know are always evolving in the current moment. And it's going to be exclusive to you, meaning it's data that you have on your customers and prospects that your competitors don't. The B2B landscape, as Robert mentioned, has shifted quite a bit. Decision-making committees at B2B companies are larger than ever. There's like 6 to 10 stakeholders involved in most B2B decisions. And the grand majority of the buying process is completed independently these days. On top of that, the elephant in the room is the shift out of third-party cookies, right? So we're having a harder time collecting data from third parties on what our prospects and customers are interested in. Those two factors make first-party data, collecting it, more important than ever before. And when I was thinking about this very stacked roster of webinar attendees and what could I bring differently to this conversation, one thing that I don't think is talked about enough when we're talking about what is first-party data is actually like what the data is and how it works. When we're talking about our CRMs or marketing automation platforms, we're really used to talking about objects as a concept. Objects are pieces of data that are designed to represent processes and relationships. They're designed to tell you the most current state of a contact, of a company, of a deal, of a ticket, to use some very HubSpot-centric examples there. Now, object data is really great for telling you the current state of your customers, but it's not so great at tracking behavior. There's actually an entirely different kind of data that is designed to do that, and that's called events. Events actually are happening under the hood in your marketing automation platform or CRM, oftentimes without you even knowing. So to use HubSpot again, email opens, form submissions, ad engagement, those are all examples of event data. Now, unlike objects, which are designed to tell you the current state of a process or a relationship, an event is simply a moment in time. It's a thing that happened, right? It's an interaction. Every time you hear a verb, a form submission, an email open, a page view, that's an action that a prospect or a customer is taking. And that's going to be stored down as event data. Now, why should you care what kind of data that is fueling your marketing interactions? It's because so often when I meet with marketers and I take a look in their CRM or I take a look in their marketing automation platform, we see attached to their contact is thousands of custom properties that are capturing dozens of different interactions. Often they don't get updated. They'll do one thing one time, and now there's this property that lives on the object forever. Makes it really hard for the rest of your front office teams that you support to understand actually what has happened. And that's where event data comes in. So when we talk about event data, let's talk about a little bit about the tooling. One of the first tools that comes to mind for tracking first-party data for a lot of folks is Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager is really just a management tool that allows you to place scripts on your website and manage those scripts in a no-code sort of way. One of those scripts that you might want to put on your website is HubSpot's own first-party tracking tool, which is called Custom Events. So the purpose of custom events is to track interactions with your customers. So track events or activity data that's unique to you. So HubSpot out of the box captures form submissions, email opens, page views, but that's often not enough. You have business specific context on your site that drives really critical marketing engagement. So custom events let you track activity that's unique to you. And the added benefit of custom events versus tracking website engagement using something like Google Analytics is it's directly integrated into your CRM or marketing automation platform. So you actually get to know who did the thing, which is really important for proper segmentation, personalization, and attribution reporting. So we're going to dive into custom events and chat about it just a little bit. Amazing. So now we are inside a sample HubSpot portal here, and we are looking at the custom events app. So events, again, designed to just allow you to track actions that are unique to you. There's lots of different ways to set up event data. We have a completely no-code option here called the visualizer, which actually just lets you load your website and click on the button that you want to track and say, this is the name of that button. That's great for teams that don't have a lot of technical resources. You also have the ability to capture events through custom JavaScript. That's going to be great for more complex behaviors like a login. They're used really frequently for scrolls. They also can be used to send data via other tools to HubSpot. So a really common example is if you're hosting content on your site via YouTube videos and you want to track who's actually engaging with those videos, you can use custom JavaScript to send YouTube video views through into custom events. We have webhooks. That's a really lightweight, no-code way to get data into a platform from a third-party tool that you might already be tracking activity in. And we have sending via API. So that's going to be the most flexible way for you to send data that's directly from your SaaS app or website, and it contains any sort of custom properties or attributes that are unique to your business. So those are a couple of the ways that you can set up custom events for tracking first-party data. Now, let's talk through like a real example of why you would want to do this and how you could then use this data across the HubSpot platform. Let's say on your website, you have a button for someone to sign up for some sort of like free service, free trial engagement with your team. You can create an event to track who's clicking on that free trial offer. And then you can actually follow it all the way through and also track who's actually signing up for your services. Now, those two events independently provide really valuable information, but where the magic of first-party data comes in is in tracking both of those activities together. So I'm going to show you a little bit what that looks like using some other HubSpot tools. So if I select both of those events and I open them in a tool in HubSpot called Customer Journey Analytics, which is a reporting tool of HubSpot's where you can track how folks move through multiple actions that you want them to take. This is like the beauty of a live demo here. Got to make sure my date range is right, and then I'll rerun my report. Okay, so now what we're looking at here is we're looking at not just how many people have signed up for my free trial, but it's actually how many people signed up for my free trial and then actually ended up purchasing services from me. So those are two separate events. So you'll see on the left here, I've got my two events in separate stages, and I can see my conversion rate. I can see how long it actually takes a customer to move from stage 1 to stage 2, and I can actually look at who's doing those conversions themselves. So that's just one example of how you can use first-party data to actually better understand marketing attribution. Another example is driving better personalization. So to talk through that use case super quickly, let's say the folks that clicked a free trial and haven't signed up, I want to send them an email offering some sort of discount or more personalized messaging, right? So I can open my event in workflows. So when I open my event in workflows, I then have the ability to decide I want to send an email to that audience about the thing that they have done. There's so many options in workflows. Send email. There it is. Okay. So in this slide out here, I can select the email that I want to send. And that way, when someone actually engages with my free trial option, I can send them really personalized content based on the thing that they've done, not just based on who they are. So those are a couple of different ways to use custom events here in HubSpot to drive more powerful segmentation, automation, reporting. Yeah, that is, I'm going to pass it back over to Robert to send it, I think, over to Michelle next.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I mean, one of the things we talk a lot about at Content Marketing Institute is the power of first-party data, and doing exactly what you just did there, Maggie, which is this idea of how can we really start to understand the journeys and the ways that our customers are engaging with our content. And it is truly one of the best arguments for a content marketing approach where you're delivering valuable kinds of digital experiences so that you get smarter over time, right? So it's not just about a lead, but it's also helping the organization through the acquisition of first-party data get smarter over time. And in fact, one of the things that we see is in the first-party data idea is that the brands that are leveraging this, these are B2B brands, right, that are leveraging this first-party data in an effective way, 2.9x revenue boost, right? Almost a 3x revenue boost from what it is that they're doing in creating those optimized experiences, and more than a 1.5x cost saving. So they're both saving money and increasing the top line as well. So it's just an amazing thing. And so I'm not going to tout it anymore because Michelle's going to come in here. And basically, Michelle's going to talk all about this idea of first-party data and why it's such an important part of your strategy, and more importantly, how to actually use it. So Michelle, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Robert. So hi, everyone. I'm Michelle. I'm the partner manager here at StackAdapt. And like Robert already mentioned, I manage the HubSpot partnership, and I'm really excited to share with you how you can use first-party data in HubSpot for your programmatic advertising campaigns. Now, as mentioned by Robert and Maggie previously, first-party data is more important than ever. With tightening privacy regulations, talks about where third-party cookies are going, marketers simply just can no longer rely on the same old tactics to reach their audiences. And you're not alone. We're seeing continuous uptake in first-party data adoption, and we've seen 154% year-over-year uptake to users leveraging first-party data into their advertising strategy. Now, whenever I'm talking to a marketer, the sentiment is typically, Michelle, I know first-party data is really important, and I know I should use it, but I don't think I have enough data for targeting purposes, and truthfully, I don't even know where to start. Do you have any best practices? Which I think is totally fair. So what exactly is first-party data, and where can you start as someone who is building out your first-party data approach actually begin? So as Maggie mentioned, first-party data is what you collect directly from your customers. It's consented data that's reliable and reflects real intent and engagement. And it can come in many different forms, whether it's website behavior, email subscribers, like people subscribe to your newsletter, purchase history, loyalty programs, and whatever is in your CRM data. Now, I'm going to assume most of you have some form of first-party data, whether you know it or not, as you typically would have a list of leads that you're already prospecting, want to prospect, a list of all your existing active clients, and users who have signed up for your newsletter or filled out a form fill on your website. These can all be used to create segments for your programmatic campaign. And if you don't know where to start, what I typically always recommend is let's start with three lists, a list of all your top clients where you're like, if every client was just like this, it would make my life so much easier. A list of qualified leads that you want more of, that you want to convert, and a list of churned clients that you would like to either not target or reactivate. This way, it really gives you a foundation to reach the right audiences while saving on advertising dollars. And what I mean by that is now you can take that client list and run a lookalike model to find more clients that are similar to your existing ones that you know converted really well. You can retarget and drive that qualified leads further down the funnel for faster conversions, all while excluding a list of churn clients or accounts in your CRM that don't fit your ICP to save on advertising dollars. Another option would be to retarget that churn list within your ICP to reactivate some of those users. I believe that StackAdapt is in a unique position where we've not only enabled marketers to use your contact list to create CRM audiences, but we've also enabled marketers to use your company target lists within HubSpot as ABM audiences for your B2B campaigns. And this really helps you extend your reach to specific companies, and you could segment further based on company size, title, seniority, whatever that may be. So we've talked quite a bit about like what is first-party data, where to start, and how to apply it to your campaigns. Now, let's talk a little bit about why you should actually use it. Maggie has already mentioned this, but it's super important to remember. First-party data is your competitive advantage against your competitors, because truthfully, no two companies are actually collecting first-party data in the exact same manner. Third-party data is accessible to anyone with similar budget as you, while your own first-party data is only accessible to you and only you. Therefore, marketers who are thoughtful in their first-party data approach typically have an edge over their competitors and allows you to win in the market while maximizing your budget in the long run. Just to share some stats, some results that we're currently seeing with some of our clients that are taking on this approach. We've seen one client where they've seen lower cost per lead by 75%, and this was doing a head-to-head test of using first-party data, not using first-party data on a different DSP and versus StackAdapt. We've also had one client where they ran a campaign using first-party data and another targeting method. And they actually saw that 56% of their conversions were coming from their first-party data audiences while only using 40% of their budget. This makes first-party data very cost-effective while delivering real business results. All right, now I want to show you how easy it is to actually connect HubSpot and StackAdapt and use your HubSpot audiences with your StackAdapt campaigns. So you'd start off in the StackAdapt platform and you would simply go under settings and click on integrations. The easiest way is to actually search for HubSpot, and you'll see that there is an integration for CRM audiences and one for ABM. You will need to connect to both in order to use both your contact-based lists and company-based lists to create CRM and ABM audiences. You'll see that it's already connected, but typically your first bit, you would click on connect and it'll actually lead you to HubSpot, and you would simply just sign into your account and then your accounts are connected. Now, to create these HubSpot accounts into StackAdapt to use for your campaigns, you would go under Audience and Attributions, expand Programmatic Audiences, and click on My Audiences. To create a CRM audience, you would click on Create an Audience and go all the way to the bottom and click on Integration Audiences. You would select your data source, which in this case is HubSpot, and click Next. So let's just say that I want to retarget people who have submitted a form fill. So I might say lead form fill as my audience name. I would select my contact lists. And if I click on this bar, I see a drop down of all the HubSpot contact-based lists that I have, and I would just select my lists. And you click done. Now, to create an ABM audience, you would go back and click on create an audience, go to ABM audiences, select your audience name. So let's just say I have a list in HubSpot called manufacturing targeting list of all the manufacturers that I want to target. I name it and I click next. I click on integration, select HubSpot as my data source, select my connection. And then like the CRM audiences, if I click here, I see a drop down, but if not, simply go into HubSpot, look for your list, click on details, and then just copy and paste your list ID. And then all you have to do is paste it in, and then there you go. Now for ABM audiences, feel free to layer on firmographics like company size, job titles that you want to target, and simply click save. And that is how simple it is to leverage your HubSpot lists into StackAdapt as audiences for you to target. Now, you may be wondering, why should I use this HubSpot integration versus just uploading a CSV file or any other method? The beauty of using the HubSpot app is that your audiences are always up to date. So if it refreshes in HubSpot, it'll refresh in StackAdapt, ensuring that you're never targeting a stale audience. And it's a lot more compliant and privacy safe. You're not exposing raw PII data in a CSV, emailing it, putting it in a Google Drive. This is totally secure and a much better way to build first-party data audiences. So hope that was super easy to follow. And now back to Robert.
That was very awesome. It's one of those things where it always feels like it's going to be more difficult than it is. And especially with great tools, you've got the ability to start to think through. One of the hardest things to do is to say, okay, great, the tools are easy. This is fairly straightforward. But one of the biggest challenges that we often find is like, okay, but what does that campaign even look like? Like, what does that, how do I even start to put the if this, then this, all of those things together and starting to think about it? I mean, we've learned about data, we've learned about tools, we're trying to activate those things, but now we got to put it all together, right? And what Sean is going to do now is help us figure out about how we start thinking about building the campaigns that actually start to drive some of this measurable performance. So, Sean, with no further ado, right over to you.
Yeah, now I know how the backup catcher on the Yankees last year felt after batting after Stanton, Soto, and Judge. I mean, now the backup catcher comes into play. So, let's see it. So, just as you said, Robert, we listened to some great presentations on tools, and what a great set of tools that HubSpot has to identify, to collect that first-party data. And then on top of it, StackAdapt, being able to pull that first-party data into the ad platform and target those individuals. I think that is something to be said. When we're talking about normal PPC, right? We're targeting keywords, we're targeting places that we hope our ideal ICPs are at. But with first-party data from these tools, we can target those people wherever they're at, whether, whatever device they're on. So as you were saying, let's get into it. Let's talk about that third wheel of the ultimate marketing trifecta, that planning, that strategy, and that campaigns. And let's go into it with some real examples. So the challenge that everybody's feeling right now, and listen, I'm a B2B marketer, just like most of you are on this call. We're getting extreme pressure, and a lot of us are dealing with very niche audiences that are really hard to track, right? And there's not a lot of tools that allow us, as far as advertising platforms, to target those. So that's a huge challenge that a lot of you are facing. And one of our clients faced this challenge particularly, and I'm going to use them as an example of how we created some unique strategies for campaigns. I'm going to tell you about those campaign strategies so you can implement them yourselves and really start driving some real results. So one of the biggest problems is reaching those key decision makers. But that's where that first party data layered in with that third party data will allow you to reach those ideal key decision makers and really demonstrate clear ROI from your advertising efforts. A lot of times, B2B marketers are faced with the problem of, well, LinkedIn is really the only ad platform that I can target specific users by job title and by, company and by revenue. But it's really not a great platform. It's a walled garden, as Maggie always tells me. Oh, it's a walled garden, right? We want to use a platform that is more expansive, and that's where tools of HubSpot with StackAdapt really give us that advantage over that challenge. So let's jump into the next slide. Here is the solution. Obviously, integrating that first party data in HubSpot. I love the example, Maggie, that you showed where you were creating custom events for how people were consuming content. And Robert said, your website, your content hub, your area should be, your website property should be an area where people consume content. And creating those events and those journeys of how they consume content, all that data can be gathered, leveraged in StackAdapt for a multi-channel strategy and approach, right? Some of the ideas that you can use as far as strategies that we implement for a lot of our B2B, obviously one of our main goals is traffic and lead generation. Obviously, with custom events, we can put together the first party data, how leads come into our system, move through our content, but yet don't convert, and then reach out to them with programmatic ads through StackAdapt that are personalized directly for them. It's amazing what personalization will do, and especially in ads. Incorporating first-party behavioral data into your strategies can reduce your overall PPC costs by 83%, and it actually improves your conversion rates by up to 30%. So it's a huge win as far as implementing that and generating new traffic and new leads as far as that. Not only can you drive new leads that you're using first-party data, you can create lookalikes, right? So you can use your existing data to create lookalike audiences within StackAdapt and say, hey, these accounts are my best accounts. They're the most profitable accounts to our company. You can create a lookalike audience based off the contacts and companies that are in your first-party data source, such as HubSpot, your CRM, and then create ad campaigns that are directed towards them. Trade shows, fantastic way to collect first-party data. HubSpot has a tool where you can import that first-party data from those conversations that your people are having at trade shows with people, and actually upload that information right into HubSpot. That's first-party data. All your correspondence with people that you're having, your sales team, your customer service people, all those type of things can be uploaded into HubSpot and then used in StackAdapt for programmatic ads. So trade show attendance and trade show awareness type of campaigns perform extremely well because you're hitting those people with retargeting and programmatic ads right after you had a chance to talk to them. So I can't stress enough how successful those campaigns are. So use your trade show data, upload it into HubSpot, and target with programmatic ads of where they're at online. Finally, don't forget about your opportunities and deals, right? Once they become opportunities and deals, a lot of B2B marketers forget, like, hey, the job's not done, right? Even when they buy your product, the job's not done. You want repeat buys, and you want to move those people through the pipeline as fast as possible. So when they do become a sales qualified lead and your sales team is working them, this is a perfect opportunity to create what I call pipeline velocity campaigns, right? That will help close those deals faster, because efficiency is also an important ROI. A lot of B2B manufacturers and industry people, their sales cycle is super long. So reducing the sales cycle can help increase revenue and can help increase more impact to your bottom line and deliver ROI. And then finally, pipeline resuscitation. Well, it's just my fancy way for saying, take your closed loss deals or the deals that you think that are stale or old that aren't going anywhere, and create a personalized campaign towards those. Re-engage them. You don't have to re-engage them with a hard sales push or anything like that, but be helpful to them. Show some programmatic ads based off of your interactions of your sales your sales process. Your salespeople probably got objections and pain points. Use those in your ad campaigns to resuscitate your pipeline and those deals and leads, and show ads to them that specifically lead them to areas on your website that overcome their objections, that speak directly to their pain points. It's a huge win. So just some results from a recent trial we did with one of our B2B industrial manufacturers, right? This stuff works. The results from a 90-day trial, $130,000 in new opportunities from retargeting campaigns from people just interacting with our content on the website, right? And ideally identifying that journey process and hitting them at the right time with that personalized ad, right? We had generated 5 new SQLs, and these are high value SQLs from our lookalike audiences and our blend of first party and third party data. So it was a really good way to target these individuals and target new individuals that look like them. We generated $30,000 immediately for our pipeline resuscitation program. Deals that we thought were long dead. We created ads and personalized experiences for those people based off of their pain points and their objections, right? And the whole program, we saw a 35-time return on our ad spend. Our ROAS was 35x, so it was huge. And what type of ads did we use? We leveraged a lot of native display, and we used video pre-roll, and we used a little bit of display advertising. So these ads spoke directly to our consumers and really touched upon what they were going through at that moment, whether they were new leads, just checking out our content, or if they engaged with our sales team or our customer service team, and it really put together a cohesive program for it. So those are some of the things that I definitely want you to try, and those campaigns and strategies will help get your B2B marketing into hyperdrive and start producing that all-important ROI, especially during these times.
Fantastic. As always, high energy, Mr. Sean. I expected nothing less. And a baseball metaphor to go with it too. So, you know, I mean, what more can you ask for in April? Okay. So much good stuff in this session. And, you know, you've got the value of CRM tools. You've got first party data. You've got the campaigns to put all of this together. And I know there's a bunch of you out there going, okay, remember, we're going to get a recording of this, right? Yeah, we don't have to remember everything that we recorded here and all of that. But just know, we're also going to take it up a notch, not just send you the recording. You're going to get an email shortly with not just the webinar recording, but it's going to allow you to select some resources that we've featured or talked about or in some way wanted to talk about today. And you can get these resources for learning. You might want one on the tools like StackAdapt and HubSpot and integration and the HubSpot custom event creation, or a strategy playbook that can help you implement your own brand, your own strategy, your own ideas using a wonderful playbook there. Just select whichever resource you're interested in, of course, and we will send it along. And so now we get to move to the Q&A session, right, where we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened here and talk to the panel a bit. And please continue to submit your questions through the webinar panel. We've got a bunch of questions already, but if we don't get time to address yours, well, we'll actually follow up, directly. It's personal that way. I mean, we're sort of, do you get it? See how we're connecting those things together? Anyway, all right. So let's get to our first question here, which is a really good one. And Michelle, I'm going to direct this first one at you, which is going to be a question that came in that says, how can B2B marketers today start leveraging first-party data effectively if we're already sort of normally and usually relying on third-party sources? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good, great question. And it's something that's really top of mind for a lot of people. It's like, hey, there's third-party data. It tells me exactly which industry, what titles, it matches who I want to target. How do I go from that to first-party data, something that I have to continue building, that I might not have the large audience size that I really want in order to get that scale that I'm looking for, right? So I always say, well, let's look at your data. What do you currently have that is a really large list, right? Because you want something that scales, you want to continue building, and happy to work with people on, okay, what is it that you're trying to achieve and how do you get there? But let's start with what you currently have that's a really large, sizable like list that we can maybe start with. And the way I kind of see how third party and first party data can work together is continue using your third party data, but then find ways to tie it back to intent, right? Like, are you using your third party data audiences and driving them to a lead form fill that would then indicate what products and services that they're looking for, the questions that they might have, and then you're collecting that data, their first name, last name, email addresses, for you to continue retargeting off of. So I always say, like, tie it back into how you could start collecting more and more first party data. Start with what are some of the largest amount of data that you have. And I always say, like, if you don't think that targeting list is big enough, you typically don't really need that big of a list to start with, and it grows, right? Like, it'll continue growing. But at the very least, come up with a list of people you don't want to target and save yourself some advertising dollars and use that as an exclusion suppression list for your campaigns.
Yeah. But just very quickly as a follow-on to that, what is your take on sort of the need to do sort of a, I don't know what the right word is, sterilization, cleanliness, sort of audit of the data first, as part of that process that you're talking about? Or do you just like look at what you've got and go with what you've got and sort of clean it along your way? Do you have a best practice on that?
Yeah, clean data, going through it is very important. But I think most people, whenever I talk to them, they know which data in their CRM is actually the quality data that they want to continue using. And they know which one are the stale data that they have to clean up. So I always say, like, if you already know that, let's start with that. And then let's work towards like cleaning it out and categorizing things and then like putting things where they belong. I always see people where they have a lot of, they break it down by how inactive someone is. Where are they inactive in the last 30 days, 90 days, 160 days? Like, it goes on, but that's kind of how I would go about something like that.
Gotcha. All right, this next question it's a two-parter, and I'm coming for you, Sean, with this one. And we talked a little bit about personalization, right? So, as I said in the very beginning, personalization is often one of the, it's a huge sort of hot topic these days, and it always feels more overwhelming than it in many ways has to be. But when you start thinking about putting these things together, so part one, I guess, of this is you start thinking about this first-party data strategy. How can we look at this as personalization and really improving lead quality?
Yeah, and that's the big thing that I really want to get across. And I know that's probably not the first part, but the quality of your data, good data in equals good data out, and really talking about using that data in a right way. If we think to ourselves how much advertising we're exposed to, right? The old adage when I was a young man in school, you had to get hit 5 to 7 times before you recognize a brand. I mean, just think about how much advertising, how many different platforms we're exposed to. It's not only importance as far as the number of times that we're hit with the ads, but really how relevant it is to where we at in our decision-making process or where we're at in the pains and struggles that we're facing. So that's where personalization and using that data will have a huge effect. And let's face it, as a B2B marketer, we all have limited advertising budgets. So we have to be smarter and we have to use our data and personalization of our ads to speak directly to our consumers, our prospects, our ICPs, to really go after them.
Yeah. And well, and it tees up very nicely the sort of second part of that question, which I'd love to get your sort of take on as well, because you spoke directly to a case study here, which is, okay, in manufacturing, this is the context of the question, by the way. I'm a manufacturing marketer, right? And so how do you effectuate the transition, right? So, they've got a database of maybe third-party data or something. What's the best way to start to think about the challenges that we're going to face in sort of transitioning, if you will, to this first party idea?
Yeah, and that's the big thing is trying to limit segmentation paralysis, so to speak, and trying to over engineer things. It's you got to eat the elephant a bite at a time. So really looking at your data, and I like how Michelle started with, focusing in on smaller units. Let's take, for instance, you're in B2B manufacturing and you hit 4 industries. Really taking a look at, do I have cleanish data in those 4 industries to let me at least segment my ICPs as far as by industry, and starting off with just that. And really just starting off with just that. And then getting your sales team involved. I don't know how many times I talked to B2B marketers that they work in silos from their sales team, and their sales team has a wealth of information of the objections that they hear on a daily basis, the pain points that their customers are feeling. That is literal first party data gold as far as personalization, as far as, okay, now that I know my industries that I'm going after and my business titles that they deal with, here's the pain points that, after talking to my sales team, can help that. And starting with just that will make a world of difference for the programmatic ads that you're running, and really start to personalize those ads and those experiences for people, and take them to the proper sites on your website or on your app or wherever it's at.
Yeah, Maggie, I wanted to let you chime in here. You must see this as well, sort of from the lens that you see from the customers that you have, sort of this trying to make this transition and trying to make first party and the events and all of these kinds of things into a strategy. Anything to add there to what Sean talked about?
I think it's a lot of it is just deciding what it's really tempting to say, I want to track every single piece of engagement that could possibly happen anywhere throughout my entire buyer's journey. And I think the key to getting started is starting small. What are the key engagements that drive conversion? Start with those, make sure those are really accurately tracked, and then start to add on from there.
Get those money metrics, metrics. Yeah. Get those going first. Well, that brings up another question that came in. And Sean, maybe I'll come back to you for this really quickly here. So for manufacturing marketers, as we're thinking about B2B and all of that, so when you start thinking about it, what are those money metrics? Like, what metrics should we be focused on when integrating like a HubSpot, StackAdapt together into the campaigns that you're designing? How do you think about that? What are those money metrics that we should start with?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that people often think about that after the ads are starting to run and everything. You're going, okay, what is this telling me here? What is this saying? It's really dependent on the strategy. And I say that lovingly because, you can use your data to, hit people with programmatic ads at all sorts of the decision-making process and even beyond. So always start off with what your strategy is. For instance, pipeline velocity, right? You're speaking directly, you're showing advertisements to people that are already in your pipeline with open opportunities. So the key metrics would be in there is to either increase the value of those existing deals, decrease the push rate of, the deal close, the time the deal takes to close, or look at the time per stage to move as you're showing ads to these people. So those KPIs would be very different than a traditional, hey, listen, I have a lookalike audience and I want to layer in some third-party data, and I'm looking at, visits to my website and MQL downloads. So really start at what is the overall strategy and what is the goal that we're trying to accomplish here, and be realistic about your goals too. Obviously, if you're in B2B manufacturing, you understand that the life cycle stage of when a lead comes to your website to the time they install that piece of machinery or that product, it's a long time. So don't expect one set of ads to convert somebody into a customer in 24 hours or less. That's a huge mistake too. Think about it as the journey goes and establish those KPIs for every step of that journey.
That's awesome. I love that. Yes, it's not, you know, it's a long game. It's the long con, right?
It really is.
For the long term. We've got time for one more question here. And because it hasn't been enough about me, I'm going to make it about me. And so the question that came in, it says, with the rise of podcasts and audio content, how should B2B marketers be thinking about adjusting digital strategies to stay ahead of that curve? And this one's close to my heart, having a podcast and thinking about a lot about audio and video content and where we are with that in B2B. And I think the idea here is that what I talk to my clients about so much is not thinking about the content, whether you develop a show, whether you're developing, TikTok videos, whether you're developing rich media content that's all, that you're displaying in so many different channels. Think about, for all of those, as you design for each of those channels, the key is what I call the best next. Like, always be asking what the best next is. In other words, every piece of content, no matter where it sits in the buyer's journey, has a call to action. And to me, it's always, what's the best next experience? In other words, if you create that podcast, the call to action from that podcast should be, what do I want that customer, what do I want that best next experience to be? It might be subscribing to my newsletter. It might be actually talking with someone about this. It might be attending an event. It might be, whatever that best next experience that you want them to take. And think about that best next literally as best next. In other words, if the next experience shouldn't be like conversion on a lead, or shouldn't be actually calling a salesperson, or don't make that the call to action, because it's not going to work. What's the best next experience for thinking about that rich media, whether it's a podcast or whether it's a video or whether it's a webinar or whatever those things are? Okay. We had a bunch of other questions come through, and I'm so sorry. We are at time, and we want to make sure that we're getting to this. Thank you again to all of our presenters here. Such an amazing, wonderful group of presenters. I learned a lot about technology today that I didn't even know was capable, and it's so much easier than I thought it might be. And that is really a wrap on our session today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, got some great and useful and practical takeaways. Don't forget about those resources that you're going to have available to you. Stay tuned for that follow-up email. It's going to include the recording, include access to those resources. And of course, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thanks for joining. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.